Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Shahin Ghadir, and thank you for joining me on another episode of The Fertile Life. I'm very excited today to have Jessie Golden here. As many of you who are looking at my Instagram page may notice, I sometimes have very special patients that decide to be very open about their entire journey towards fertility. I admire. And again, I'm going to have a problem because I always call her Jessica. That's what all her doctors call her, but everyone else calls her Jessie. I admire her for being so unbelievably open about this entire process. And in some ways, she's doing this in a very unique way because her husband is actually not in town and is filming a TV show in Canada. So welcome. I want you to introduce yourself. And one thing I like everyone to do is to talk about what they would think is the best introduction for themselves and they're most proud of.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me, by the way.
My pleasure.
Well, I am a mom, actually, even though I do want to have more children, but that's probably what I'm most proud of. And I'm actually a holistic health practitioner, a yoga teacher, and I have my own skincare line called The Golden Secrets. So I'm pretty full.
I think I need some of those golden secrets like right now.
I brought you something, actually.
Oh, thank you. I always see you talking about your son. And how old is he?
He's 17.
He's 17.
Yeah, which is crazy because everyone's like, you're starting all over. And I'm like, well, you know, I loved, like when I became a mom, I really came into my own. And had it been up to me, I would have probably had 10 children. Like I love being a mom, but that's just not the way that my life played out. I was a single mom for most of my life until, you know, I met my husband, who's not my son's biological dad, but he's definitely his father. But, you know, I just love being a mom. Like, it's crazy. And it's crazy to think that I'm trying all over again, but it's so cool. I'm like, Kaleo's excited. His name's Kaleo. You know, we talk about it all the time. I'm like, you're kind of going to be more like an uncle, but at least I'll have another set of hands.
He's going to be a sibling. He's definitely going to be a sibling.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And he must be so excited for that opportunity.
He is. I mean, he gets it. You know, he's unfortunately been, you know, he's old enough to know what's going on, and which I've shared, like, openly that I've, you know, had miscarriages and I've, you know, struggled with this whole thing. And he's learning a heck of a lot for a 17-year-old. Like, he's going to be really prepared in this realm. But he's very smart and conscious, and he understands, like, you know, I think he understands more than most, actually.
You know, we sometimes underestimate how much young people know.
Yeah.
I sometimes, you know, just like even my 4-year-old, I sometimes assume like she gets a lot of things that I just don't understand how she gets it, and is so really good at it. So, well, I hope that we're going to give him good news. I know that you are working so hard.
Yeah.
Do you want to let people know a little bit about what was going on with you and the reason you came to see me?
Yeah. You know, I want to preface, I never thought that this would be part of my story. And I feel like that it goes for a lot of women. Like, in sharing my story, so many women have started to message me and come forward. And it's, like, so beautiful. I'm like, oh, my gosh, there's this whole other tribe of motherhood that I had no idea about. You know, I had my son at 25, which was considered young for California. So I had a child, like, before all of my other friends, I feel like. And then seeing my other friends have kids after me, a lot of them did struggle. So I've seen what they've gone through, but I never thought that would be part of my story. I never tried to get pregnant. My son was like the greatest surprise of my life. So when my husband and I were like, let's start trying, like many during COVID, we were just like sitting around, and he's like, let's start trying. I'm like, trying what? And he's like, let's just try to get pregnant. And I was like, okay. I was so excited.
Did you know that he wanted to have a child?
I did, yeah. And he's 5 years younger than me. And I did, you know, I think that, you know, this is something that, like, women are scared to talk about because it sounds like an ultimatum. But when we started dating, I was like, this is my age. These are the, you know, statistics, and I do want to have more children. I just don't know what that journey is going to be like. Like, because I had so many friends have horror stories that were actually young, you know, have lots of health issues and stuff, being able to get pregnant. So,
how long have the two of you been married?
Not very long. We got married in quarantine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's only been a year. but, we joke and we're like, in this lifetime, because he's just, we knew right away. We're just soulmates and, beyond. But yeah, during quarantine, he said, let's start trying. And it was the first time that I had ever been like, oh my gosh, we're going to try. What do I do? I feel like women spend most of their life trying not to get pregnant. And then the moment when it's like, we're actually going to try, it's like, what do I do? So, started tracking my ovulation. And I remember talking to my gynecologist, and he said, if you try for a year and you can't get pregnant, then, we'll talk.
We've got to change that one. That's a really bad piece of advice.
That's what I was told. And I was like, wow. So I remember I told Devin that, and I was like, this could take a year. So we might as well just start trying type of idea,
So you're supposed to say, let's put it this way. By definition, if you're under the age of 35 and you've been trying for a year, it gives you the diagnosis of infertility. After the age of 35, it's if you've been trying for 6 months. But I'm all about being as proactive as possible. Why not do testing, and why not do the things that you can do that aren't going to harm anyone, hurt anyone at all, when you can, and see, exactly what's going to happen, and if there's some reason that you need to start sooner and not wait that long.
I so wish that I would have known about testing, AMH. What is it, AMH?
AMH.
Level?
We're going to talk about that AMH.
Levels and stuff like that. I had no idea that was even a thing. Is that new?
So that's actually, well, AMH was definitely not around when you got pregnant the first time around. In the last, I'd say probably less than 10 years, there's a blood test that came out called AMH, anti-Mullerian hormone. Not malaria, has nothing to do with malaria. It's called Mullerian. That's the origins of the female genital tract. So the anti-Mullerian hormone, it comes directly from the eggs in the body. So when you check a blood test and the AMH level is high, you've got a lot of eggs. When the AMH level is low, you've got low eggs. This is a wonderful hormone because you can be on birth control and you can go test your AMH. You can be on any time during your entire month. Does not have to be on day 2 or 3 of your menstrual cycle. You can just go in and check it, and it's very accurate. And it's by far more accurate and stable than the FSH level that people like to check on day 2 or 3 of the menstrual cycle. So it's a game changer for us.
And what's the FSH?
So the other hormones that we check that have to do with fertility, one is FSH, one is LH, and one is the estradiol level. And generally speaking, we do those on day 2, 3, or 4 of the menstruation or of the cycle. Even if you bleed 2 days, it could still be done on day 3 or 4 of your cycle. And that's basically giving us some baseline information about how that cycle is. Right. So we get some great information that way. And we're able to tell people, and also the ultrasound looking at the ovary, those little bubbles that my ultrasonographers count when they're doing that ultrasound on you. Gives me a great understanding of if someone's going to have a good cycle and make a lot of eggs, or if someone's going to have very few eggs. Now, there are some people that have very few little bubbles on their ovary, but the medications wake up the ovary and they do really well. And once in a blue moon, you'll see someone that has a reasonable number of those little bubbles on their ovary, but you give them the medicine and they still continue not to make any or make that many. So it varies, but generally speaking, the FSH, the LH, the estradiol, the ultrasound that looks at the ovary, and your AMH are the best predictors when put all together to tell someone how fertile they are.
I mean, and these are all things that I just learned, through you and through that process. But, had I known before, I think I would have been more proactive. Like I said, I just didn't think that was going to be part of my story. Because another misconception that I had was when my husband and I said, okay, let's start trying, we actually got pregnant the second month of trying. And I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Of course, we were excited, the whole thing. And then, we miscarried. So I had always had this idea that fertility was for people that couldn't get pregnant. And then there was this whole other layer for me at 42 who, was miscarrying super early. And perhaps it was just the quality of eggs, because even before I saw you, I got everything else kind of looked at.
Well, one of the complications of being older is that people still do get pregnant. but the quality of eggs have gone down so much. And there can also be some issues of what's going on in someone's body that doesn't allow for implantation to work really well. But with that being said, the science behind what we do is able to weed through the bad eggs and find the good egg and the good sperm, which help us find a beautiful, healthy embryo. And that's why my clinic and myself, especially, we believe in the genetic testing that's done on embryos, because that's a game changer. After my oldest was born, my wife and I decided to get ready for pregnancy again, and we got pregnant and had a miscarriage. And we also did not get pregnant for about 2 years after that. Wow. We're not sure exactly why we didn't get pregnant, but eventually we had to do IVF, and we did genetic testing on our embryos. And at the last week, we decided, you know what, we want to have a bigger family, so why not put 2 embryos back? A brave decision, but we're very lucky. We were both took, and my wife went all the way to her due date with our twins, and our twins are now 9.5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have a 4-year-old surprise that came out of nowhere.
Wow.
Very welcomed. We love her to death. But
That's
yeah,
amazing.
It's amazing because it has shown me from doing what I do that anything is possible and happens in the world of fertility.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. I know I've heard such cool stories from women reaching out and connecting with me because I'm sharing my story. And I've just heard just the broad range of stories, maybe it didn't work, but then they were able to get pregnant naturally afterwards, or it did work, or they had twins. I've heard a lot of twin stories.
Well, we never force anyone to put 2 embryos back.
Right.
Some of the clinics that don't have the highest success rates encourage patients to put 2 or 3 or more embryos in, just trying to increase the chance of being pregnant. But we don't want to do that because our success rates are between 76 and 84% implantation per embryo.
Wow.
So when you're putting 2 in, 2 have a really good chance of taking. So I always tell people, if you're not really interested in having twins, and also are aware of all of the risks that go along with it, and aware of what happens to you in your age group with twins, maybe not a good idea.
We're going to do 1, by the way.
I hope we have a bunch of embryos. I hope we have a bunch of healthy embryos, and we put them in 1 at a time, and you come back when you're ready for the next one and see how it goes. So our goal, getting healthy embryos.
Yes.
What have you been doing? You come from the world of holistics and a
Yeah.
lot of really good things that help people healthier and get them so much closer to their goal of being pregnant and a healthy mom. What are you doing for yourself?
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting thing that I haven't talked about lately. I was vegetarian since age 11 and really had a really strong plant-based diet basically most of my life. And then when I went into this phase of I'm going to start trying, which at this point now has been 2 years, because when we originally started trying was 2 years ago. I just felt this innate needing of more primal foods. I started eating meat again.
Oh, wow.
And raw milk and raw butter, a lot of Weston A. Price type of recommendations, just more natural, grounding, healthier foods. So completely, I've actually not done a lot of plant-based. I'm cooking more of the foods because a lot of the foods that I was eating before, tons of celery juice and carrot juice and stuff like that, raw foods, I felt was actually creating a lot of inflammation in my body from the oxalates and stuff in the vegetables. So I cook a lot of my vegetables, eating all pasture.
Do you feel less inflamed?
I do. That's the craziest thing.
Wow.
I've been anti-dairy, anti-cheese. I stood on a pedestal for years, and I'm kind of cowardly going, maybe I had something wrong. But, I think that that's part of evolving and part of everybody's health journey. And especially women, we go through so many different cycles, and I think you really need to nurture what your body's going through at that particular moment. And plant food just didn't seem wholesome and grounded enough. I felt I wanted to put some weight on, which I did. I've always been very skinny, very lean, very athletic. I come from a ballet background. And when I had this idea of I want to start having children, I almost felt I wanted to plump up a little bit.
Well, let me tell you, there's some truth to that, because a little bit of estrogen on the body, a little bit of fat on the body, adipose tissue converts into estrogen. Without a reasonable amount of adipose tissue on the body, it's really hard for the body to make estrogen. And that's why a lot of our gymnasts and a lot of, unfortunately, anorexic women without any fat on their body have a really hard time to ovulate and have normal menstrual cycles. So I think that you did the right thing. I'm really curious because I've been one that could never, ever do a vegetarian or vegan diet.
Yeah.
I like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Like I like to have my steak here and there. I love to have a piece of fish here and there. I love chicken. I love salads, you know. I love my dairy. I love my cheese, but I don't excessively do anything. How do you feel? I'm really curious.
I feel amazing.
Do you feel better?
Yeah, I'm like preparing how I'm going to share this with my audience, because coming from the yoga world, I have a lot of vegetarians, and then just in social media, you know how crazy social media could get. The plant world is just like, everyone attacks each other. And it's like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's like a vegan community that gets a little crazy. But, you know, I think for my pride and my ego, I ignored my body's signals for a long time, even because I have rheumatoid arthritis. So even living with rheumatoid arthritis, I feel like I refused to take animal collagen. And looking back, I feel like it probably could have really helped me, because there's been studies on that.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, so I feel great. A lot of the inflammation has been removed from my body, not eating as many raw vegetables. And everything I do eat is organic, pasture raised, no antibiotics. I get, you know, organic raw milk. Everything I get is like super healthy.
Where do you buy everything?
You can get mostly everything at Whole Foods, but I also go to Rainbow Acres. It's like a little grocery store by me.
Oh, wow.
But you can get raw milk and raw eggs. I get organic eggs that are soy and grain-free. It's amazing now. On the Weston A. Price Foundation website, they have like different links where you can find local farmers that have like raw milk and stuff like that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
How do you feel like, so I am so not in touch with my body that way. Like I could be like right now the most inflamed human being in the world and
Well,
just
you're
like,
lucky.
just clueless that am I inflamed or,
Well, you're
you know, I
lucky.
just don't know if I'm inflamed or if I'm not. Like, can you just tell me like a couple, I do know when I eat some really unhealthy things or lots of like dairy or lots of something extreme, like sometimes I feel off.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious, like, what does someone like myself look for when I'm trying to realize if I'm inflamed or not?
Well, I think if you don't know, that's a good sign. You know, living with rheumatoid arthritis, I always tell people I'm like a magnet. Like I just pick things up like really easily, which forces me to be super healthy and aware of my body's signals. So even the healthiest things in the world could not be healthy for you. Like everyone's different.
Oh yeah,
responds
100%.
different.
I
Yes.
believe that. So let's spend a second on that. I think that you must realize that just because celery juice is good for the world, it may not be the perfect thing for you.
Yeah.
And also the other thing is like when things come out in these fads so quickly,
Yeah.
you know, like there's no more celery in the supermarkets at places. You know, like my wife couldn't find celery and I was drinking celery juice in the morning and I'm like, this is nothing. It has nothing in it and I don't know why I'm drinking this. And I could just tell it's just like something. Now, when it was like mixed into like a green beverage that had a lot of fruits and vegetables and other things in it, I found that was like, I felt good having it.
Yeah.
But I just always didn't understand what people like, I feel this way, but I guess maybe because I do have in my opinion, a well-balanced diet. Now I can tell you one thing, I love sweets and I love desserts.
Yeah.
That's my thing. I just love like cakes and pastries and cookies and stuff. When I have very few sweets, I feel tremendously better. And when I'm having a lot of sugar and a lot of sweets, I can tell there's just something like the fatigue, the energy level, everything about that is just not as good.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess it's good to pay attention. I think it's really good to pay attention. I wish I paid better attention, but that's really interesting what you said, and I'm glad that you feel better.
Yeah, it's you know, it's an ever evolving process. Like living with rheumatoid arthritis, you constantly have to be open to like new diets and new ways of being, and then, you know, throw trying to get pregnant on top of it. So I'm just like trying to be as healthy as I possibly can and get my body, which is something that I shared, you know, with everybody, because I do come from the holistic world, and here I am like going, now I'm going to do IVF, which is like completely opposite. I'm injecting myself with all these hormones and all this.
But we're not injecting ourselves with hormones. We're injecting ourselves with precursors that wake up the pituitary, that give a signal to the ovary, and then the ovary makes your hormones. So I just want to be clear that no one's injecting themselves with estrogen. We're giving LH and FSH hormones that then wake up and signal your pituitary. They give a signal to your own ovary. You make your own hormone. So it's natural estrogen that you're not injecting yourself with estrogen. So that's one thing.
Thank you for explaining that.
But I want to be very clear that, I love how people are holistic, and I love how people are taking care of themselves emotionally and physically and in every other aspect that I'm not even maybe aware of myself. But at the same time, there comes a time when doing things only holistically may not be enough.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've lived my whole life that way. Like, I always say nature first, like holistic first, like try that first.
I love that.
And then if that doesn't work, like don't be afraid to try other things. And that's exactly what it was. It was like, okay, I need help. Like this isn't working. And, all the different variables, which we can get into with like my husband being gone and all these different things. I was like, this seems like.
Yeah, people are going to be asking, how are you getting her pregnant with her husband in a different country?
Well, I love sharing that story because I tell people I think I'm funny, but I was like, on our first meeting with Dr. Ghadir, I was like, can you get me pregnant if my husband is physically not here? And you said yes. And I was like, sold. I'm good. Like,
that's like so easy for me.
How do I sign up? Where do I go?
So for those of you who don't understand how that can happen,
that works, yeah.
We have frozen sperm, and our office is really good, and it's a very easy thing that we do when we have a lot of people. I actually have a patient of mine. She is so sweet. Her husband has been in China now for 2 years, unable to come, and she's pregnant. So she is pregnant and doing really well. And thank God we had his sperm from before.
That's amazing.
And she has not seen her husband in over 2 years.
Oh, my
because their lockdown, if you guys remember, went down a little bit before ours did.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
So thank God for frozen sperm. And we're going to do an entire podcast about the reasons for people to freeze sperm.
Yeah.
But we're going to leave it at the fact that we have beautiful frozen sperm from your husband that's been helping us out a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge part of us deciding, because after the second miscarriage, we were only going to have one ovulation cycle before he had to leave for Canada indefinitely. And I'm thinking in my head, that's way too much pressure. And then what if it's another bad egg? And all these ideas are running through my head. And then I'm thinking, well, let's say by the time he comes back, then I'm 43. And then we start trying again at 43. It was just like, I got to check and see what other options there are.
Well, everyone knows, and if you don't know, now you do know, time is not on our side.
Right.
Very sadly, women do not have time on their side as a benefit to try to get pregnant the longer it takes.
Right.
And it makes things really, really difficult the longer people wait. I had a consult today, and she was lovely. She was 40 and just nervous and doesn't want to go straight to IVF. So one thing I really like to do with my patients is by the end of the call, we need to have an overall plan. Nothing set in stone. I don't make you sign a document saying this is what you're doing. But generally speaking, and she's like, I'm terrified to go to IVF. And I said, I hear you. I said, I'm perfectly fine if you want to make sure that your fallopian tubes are open and your husband's sperm is good enough. And if you wanted to try a month, 2 months, 3 months is pretty much my limit of artificial insemination and see how it goes. I'm happy to hold your hand and guide you through that process. And she's like, you're the first person that has helped me make a plan of how to attack this. It took me a year to call a doctor because I was so scared. And I wish I would have done it sooner, because if I had an overall game plan, I wouldn't have been so scared.
Yeah. It's daunting. It is scary. I remember being scared. Like, this is a whole new world. I don't know. I still don't know, like, the words and how everything works and the verbiage and all this stuff. I mean, I'm getting pretty good now because I just finished my second cycle. I felt like a pro towards the end with like all the shots and protocols and stuff.
You are a pro, and you know what? You don't have to become a fertility specialist.
Right.
So I'm very lucky. I have some of the best clinical coordinators and nurses that I've ever worked with on my team right now that are excellent and are there, and people call them every day, and people ask questions every day, and it's totally allowed and encouraged. But we don't expect people to know how to do this whole process and memorize it all and to know it all. That's why we make calendars. That's why we have teaching lessons, and that's why we go into incredible depth about this. And that's why I get a call sometimes late at night saying, I'm still not sure, and we're happy to answer it.
Yeah.
So we are more than happy to do that. I want to learn a little bit more about the things that you do, okay? We've talked a lot about fertility and all the things that I do, but I would love to learn a little bit more about the holistic things that you do. You teach a class? Is it, how do people learn the things that you do? I just want to know because I want to learn.
I share a lot on social media, but, I used to share more yoga. But like I said, ever since I was like, I'm going to try and get pregnant, I've been way more gentle with myself. Like I used to be like crazy gung ho, everything was like super pushing myself. And I just kind of took like a gentler approach to my life. Just taking long walks. I mean, I practice a lot of gua sha. I brought you a gua sha actually.
What is gua sha?
So gua sha
Just when you think you know everything and you're really smart, you don't know everything at all.
It's an ancient modality to basically bring circulation and blood flow to your skin and your body. Like I have one for my body and one for your face, but just brings like the chi and the vital life force.
Is it
it's a
something?
Tool.
Oh, it's a tool.
It's a tool.
Okay.
So my tool is made from bean stone, which is the traditional Chinese medicine that body scraping was originally made from, bean stone. And bean stone is actually really naturally healing just in itself. It has a really high frequency. So you
scrape it against your body?
You scrape it against your body in certain ways. I give you like a tutorial that helps you follow the 12 meridians of the body, which is, a lot of people think that it's very similar to dry brushing where you would scrape everything towards your heart, but it's actually a different pathway. And it's supposed to bring chi and vital life force to your body. So in Chinese medicine, they believe, which is kind of similar to acupuncture, which a lot of fertility doctors love. It's just where that stagnant energy is. That's usually where you have issues. So whether it's creating the formation of wrinkles or dark spots or cellulite or fat deposits or maybe not having enough chi, in your ovaries or, whatever is going on down there, just keeping everything moving. Like where the energy flows freely through the body is supposedly more of a healthy body. So that's one of the practices that I do all the time. Yoga and walking.
Am I gonna know how to do this?
Yeah, I actually brought one.
Are you sure?
You.
Am I gonna? I'm gonna be able to figure it out. If I can make a baby, I can figure that out.
It comes with a tutorial.
Okay, I'm gonna definitely have to do the tutorial.
Video, yeah.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So you have products that help that are holistic, that help people feel better, that help people look better, that help. These are the things that kind of.
Yeah. So I have skincare products, and then I have a couple wellness tools that help with that, like with the gua sha tools. And some other little trinkets in there. But, I always tell people my business was an accidental business. I had no intention of being an owner of a skincare line. I had a blog called The Golden Secrets where I was just sharing everything that I was going through. I had just kind of recovered from not walking for almost a year from rheumatoid arthritis. And then the yoga community gave me a platform to start sharing my story. And it was right when all the yoga companies were just starting to come to birth. And a lot of them gave me a platform to speak. So I kind of became the face of rheumatoid arthritis, which was crazy because I was certainly not what people associated with rheumatoid arthritis, doing like Scorpion and like Athleta and, all these crazy companies. But everybody eventually started asking me like what I was using on my skin and what I was using for this and what I was using for that. And all the time in my life, people would ask me, what are you using? What are you wearing? Because I've always made my own skincare products.
Oh, yourself?
Yeah, myself. Since
Wow.
high school, my
Wow.
first product, the Signature Blend Essential Oil. And everybody would always ask me, and I would just kind of brush it off. And then a friend of mine who I really admire in business said, why don't you bottle that stuff and put it on your website? And I was still modeling full time at that point. And I was like, maybe I should have a little backup plan here. So I just kind of tested it out. I made 100 bottles and I put it on my website, and it took off. And then everybody wanted more and more and more. And when I realized that this was going to be a thing, because I had been on the other side of marketing and like that whole world of being the face for different like cosmetic companies and stuff like that, I was determined to make it different and go beyond the skin. So every product comes with affirmations to recite to further enhance the products and like become the tool to practice self-love rituals, because I really think that self-love is the foundation for everything. And if I can encourage people to practice that while they're putting the lotion on their face or while they're doing their mask, because women especially, when we tend to look at ourselves in the mirror, we're pointing out all the things that are wrong. So if I can sneak in there and get them to like say, I'm beautiful and I'm youthful and I'm, glowing, and kind of rewire their brain, then I feel like I'm doing my part.
That's amazing. And that is really amazing.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
You. Oh, thanks.
I'm beyond impressed. You made these products. And so what products do you now have?
Yeah, I have an entire line.
An entire line?
Yeah,
Wow.
I do. I have an entire line. Everything's organic, and up until last month, everything was handcrafted.
By yourself?
By myself, yeah. I mean, I have people helping me, but I've personally handcrafted over 20,000 bottles.
Wow.
Yeah, but now I'm in manufacturing, so I'm like, thank God.
Okay, so the recipes are down and they're all put into them, and now someone's making it for you.
Yeah, now someone's helping me, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, I have face oils and body oils and masks and all kinds of everything that you need. Yeah.
Wow, and where do they sell these?
On my website, The Golden Secrets.
Okay, so they're not in stores yet.
Not in stores, no.
Is that a goal?
No. Once we're in manufacturing, originally, I don't know, probably like 2 years ago, I was like, I want to be the biggest skincare line in the world. And, I just kind of realized, like, through quarantine that I don't need to be the biggest skincare in the world. I just want to, be successful and help as many people as I can. But I also, like, don't want that hustle. Like, I just want to enjoy my life.
Or some of the products like time consuming and a lot of things involved, because obviously you've got the most unbelievable skin I've seen.
Thank you.
But at the same time, I just know that a lot of women may not have the time to like do this and then do that and then now this, and is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite thing about my products. So all my products are based on ancient formulas that have stood the test of time. And everything's organic and natural and plant-derived, and there's no toxins, no chemicals, and it's very simple. And I kind of like debuff everything that we're told about skincare. I don't like anything that's really harsh, that breaks down, the skin barrier and destroys it. Being on the other side of things, I feel like the beauty industry has sold us the problem and the solution for years. And, we're destroying our skin barrier, and then we're getting wrinkles, and we're trying to use something to fix it, and then we're getting dark spots, then we're using something that's going to make us sun sensitive, and then we're getting more dark spots. And it's like this whole vicious cycle of like, what do I do? And so I feel like I've really simplified it to the point where some women are like, is this enough? And I feel like nature is really enough. If it's formulated right, it is enough.
Do you stay away from the sun?
I don't. That's
you
another
don't.
thing.
Well, that's okay. That was a shocking answer. I did not expect that.
That's another thing that I
because my grandma lived to be 97 years old, and she had the most unbelievable skin until she passed away. And I'm very thankful. I think I got a little bit of her skin.
Yes, you did.
And
what was her secret?
My sister reminded me a million times, Grandma never went laying in the sun and on beach vacations like we did. So that's something
wow.
I thought it's the sun. And this summer I got a lot of sun.
Yeah.
And I just see the damage that it did.
Yeah.
Just literally like this year. And I'm turning 50 very soon. So
wow.
I'm like, maybe the sun idea, getting out of the sun and I love the sun a lot, and I love to be in the sun. But keeping it all so simple, I think, is really good. Last night at the dinner table, my 9.5-year-old daughter said to my wife, do we have rose water at home?
Aww.
And I'm like, why? She's like, because her grandma, who's not that old at all, and has gorgeous skin. She's like, Grandma washed her skin off with rose water.
That's the best.
And I'm like, oh, she did?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, and it made your skin feel so good. I want to start doing it regularly.
I love it. I have
she's
rose water
9.
in one of my products. She knows what's
Yeah.
up. Yeah. I want to talk about the sun really quick.
Oh,
I think
please,
this
yes.
is so important.
Please, yes.
And what people get it confused. So I love the sun, but this is what I do differently that I think a lot of people don't realize, which is just like to me that people don't know this, you know? So first thing is when we get flush, when we're in the sun and our skin gets flush, that's our sign to get out of the sun. That means we've gotten enough vitamin D, our skin's gotten enough sun. That's when you're supposed to seek shade or put sunglasses on. But instead, a lot of people just put sunscreen on and ignore their own body's signals and stay out in the sun longer. And a lot of these sunscreens, first of all, have toxins and chemicals and create all these other issues. But even now, the mineral-based sunscreens have a lot of oils in there that oxidize the skin. So I tell people the quickest way to understand oils and what oils can not only withstand the heat but help with UV protection is where their origin is. So if they're closer to the equator, then they can withstand the sun. So a lot of mineral-based sunscreens have like hemp and avocado, safflower. These are all actually going to age and oxidize your skin. So you put it on, and then you go in the sun, and it actually oxidizes your skin and creates the very thing that you're trying to prevent. So a lot of people have this idea about the sun when really most of it has to do with what we're eating and what we're putting on our skin before we even go into the sun. But if you listen to your body's signals, so I'm not like roasting in the sun, but I have a lot of melanin in my skin, so I can withstand the sun much longer than, somebody who's quite pale. But you have to listen to your body, and once it turns flush, that's your signal to like seek shade.
But what do you put on your skin if you can't get out of the sun and you're going to be in the sun longer than just getting that flush?
I mean, I still use natural oils. Like I have something in my line called the Heal Out oil, which helps with UV protection like naturally, but it's not a normal SPF. My son, who is a surfer and he is, in the sun, he ignores all his body signals. He's in the sun 4 hours a day, he gets really tan. Luckily, he doesn't burn. But I found a sunscreen that I like. I forget the name of it, but the base is coconut and jojoba, which are two really great oils that do not oxidize. So always look for that, and then you want to look for zinc and non-nano particle, which is really good.
So
you kind of have to investigate.
You know what? You've got to investigate this sunblock thing better. We came back from the Caribbean this summer, and then I heard on the news that the sunscreen that I had purchased from Costco was actually recalled. It had benzene in it.
Yeah.
And after a week of spraying this all over, to this day, my skin became like snake leather. Okay, like it just became awful.
Yeah.
And I had never gotten so much sun before, like in such a compacted amount of time, like
Right.
for so many hours a day. But that's something that I think we all need to be very careful. I'm so excited to look at your line and to check these things out. I wanted to thank you so much for coming and talking to me today. I could just continue and continue.
I know.
You are a pleasure. You are an unbelievable patient. I admire you for being so open and letting people learn from what you're going through. And it's such a huge gift that you're giving to others. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
If someone wanted to get in touch and learn more about your products and about the things that you do, how can someone do so?
I'm most active on Instagram, Jessie Golden and The Golden Secrets. They both have their own page.
Amazing. Well, we can't wait till this goes out and everyone gets to hear this.
Yay.
Thank you so much. And thank you
you.
guys, everyone, for listening and following along. Thank you.